Okay, people. So today I am joined by John Berardo, who, he's just about to drop his second feature, The Mannequin. John, really appreciate you stopping by. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no worries at all, man. No worries at all. So yeah, you've got your second joint, right? The
Yeah.
Mannequin. How are you feeling about
I'm
that?
feeling really good. We had the Screamfest red carpet premiere last night, so it was really cool to, feel the spirit of Halloween and everybody getting really excited about the movie. So I'm excited.
Nice. And it's your second film, right?
Hmm.
After The Initiation.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. So how do you feel that you are going on your storytelling journey? Do you think you have kind of found your voice? Have things been easier the second time around?
That's a good question. I think that I, as artists, we're constantly figuring out who or who our audience is to a
Mm,
degree. At the same time, we're figuring out how our voice speaks to them. And, I do feel that I felt like I had my voice when I made Initiation. And The Mannequin is a movie that I feel allowed me to continue what the certain themes that I was going with in Initiation, and also if you've seen Initiation, you'll notice that the cast of the Mannequin is the same as Initiation, the majority of them. And so I very much love the idea of growing with
mm.
artists and making art together. And so yeah, the voice has become more profound in terms of like what I have to say and what our stories have to say. But yeah, I mean, I think there's so many factors that go into making a movie. The challenges of making The Mannequin were so different than the challenges of Initiation, and those challenges are, I would say a huge part of like what goes into making a movie. And they're just two totally different animals when it comes to movies, but very much the same voices behind them.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? Because you, as you say, you're using like the same kind of cast from the first film, and yeah, there's certain filmmakers, right? When you look at people like Kevin Smith, like Jonathan Nolan, Adam Sandler, like they do work with a lot of the same people, like all the time. And you can see that familiarity, like that comfortability in the film, right? And the
Mhm.
performances we get from their cast, right? Is that something that you're finding?
Oh yes, absolutely. I would say too that the two of the actors, Lindsay Levanchi and Maxwell Hamilton, we all went to college together. We went
Ah,
to UCLA together. So I've been working with them for decades, and
mm,
and there's yes, and I would say it's beyond comfortability, and it's more so like people you work well with. I think that in this
yeah.
business, you work with the same people that you work well with. But I also will say that Initiation's a unique movie because it came out in the middle of the pandemic. And so we had an opportunity to make another movie together again, really because of the experience that we had through the pandemic. And so, it, will I cast everybody again in the next movie? I don't know. Depends on the movie. I will say I've definitely got roles for people in different scripts, but yeah, it's just I love seeing people grow as actors, seeing people become better, and especially when they're fresher in their careers, like I am. It's great to grow together on that same sort of level.
Yeah, no, for sure. Right. And I think when you know people's ability, right, and you know their hunger, that's a big driving factor when creating things, because you can bring people in, but they don't always share your vision, right? Have the same energy and passion as you do,
Hmm.
which you sometimes see that in films, right? Like people, their performances like aren't as strong as they are in other things, you know? So it's just like if you've got a group that you know have that same hunger, right? And you know, you're all looking to break through, you're all looking to shine and show what you can do, right? It makes sense to kind of, you know what I mean, do it together, bring yourselves up together rather than be fragmented in all of this.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. That's the collective spirit of being an artist.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Like, you know, I was looking at your director's statement, and yeah, you were like coming out, you know, through the pandemic, you kind of birthed this idea for the mannequin, and
Yeah.
also finding weird mannequins in your yard.
Yeah,
Just
well, there's some behind me if you see in this video here. Yeah, the pandemic, it was for everybody just a really devastating transitional period. I'd say like we all were kind of put on hold, and um, I I had these mannequins in my apartment from an older roommate that I went to USC with years ago, and I didn't throw the mannequins away, and I just had them because I knew that they would be I didn't know what to do with them, maybe put them in the garage or something. And so I ended up just kind of like having the idea of like turning them into art, and so having them come out of the walls, or lamps that have, the arms have, lamp bulbs instead.
mm,
So
mm,
just, what kind of like art can I create with this in a non-grotesque way either? I like to call it like Nightmare on Elm Street chic. It's like kind of freaky but pretty. And so yeah, and the the experience of the pandemic really, kind of propelled that forward. And while working on these crazy, fun mannequin art projects, the movie came to fruition.
mm. I think there's that interesting thing, right, with life, because you know it's like those situations where people are like, oh, if a fight breaks out, I'm gonna be there, I'm gonna knock the person out, I'm gonna do this, and then something goes down and that person's running, right,
Yeah,
running for the hills, right? Like you don't know often how you're gonna react until you're in the situation. And there's people that are like, oh, I'm creative, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to, you know, but I don't have the time. So I think with lockdown and everything, it kind of gave people the time to hit certain things. And you see the people that utilize that, and then there's the people that didn't.
yeah,
So it's kind of like it was one of those situations that I think it shone the light on creativity and your thirst for it, which I think is interesting,
yeah.
you
No,
know?
absolutely. And the pandemic, a lot of people, I would say, you saw different sides of people, through
Mm,
these windows, and yes, you're absolutely right. Like a lot of people had the time to, kind of be with themselves and explore the inner, workings of what they can do with their art and their minds. And I guess it just goes to the old saying is idle mind is a devil's workshop. So, if you choose to do something more creative, then that's, hopefully you could create something, that you wouldn't have done if you didn't have all the time.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think I built my website.
There you go. There you go.
I do it. But I mean, yeah, obviously, right? Some people got ill, some people just, didn't have there's sometimes you need certain resources, right? Because
Right.
there was certain things that I couldn't do because I didn't have the money to put them in play, right? But then the things that you could do, that was the stuff that I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and jump on this. I'm gonna, because it was a good distraction as well, right? So you don't have to think about all the other craziness. It was like throw yourself into this, right? Try and further these things along, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, you came up with a film.
I did.
Hmm.
I did. Yes, I came up with the film, but also I feel that the pandemic, half of it was releasing Initiation, and then the other half of it was writing the Mannequin,
Yeah.
because the Initiation came out in 2021. And so I really didn't start actually writing the Mannequin until the following year. It was
Right.
2022.
Right.
And so we were coming out of the tail end of the pandemic at that point. And I would say, yeah, it was just, releasing a movie during the pandemic and then writing a movie during the pandemic. The Mannequin is a total like creation from all of that.
Mm, mm. Yeah. Like you found the mannequins in your house, but what was the thing that kind of gave the seed for the actual story itself? With the sisters and everything like that.
Well, I have a brother, and I would say that if when I watch horror movies, what I find most devastating is like it's like, in Scream when Drew Barrymore's hanging from the tree. I'm not like, oh my God, look at her guts hanging out. I'm like, oh my God, her mother had to see that. Oh my God, her
Mm,
parents had to see that. Like, that's what I find horrifying. And so when it comes to familial relationships, I have a brother, and I think that the sibling bond is something that I've loved to explore in my first two films, especially the Initiation, the Mannequin. And I think that's just part of who I am. Is like, what do I cherish most? The bond with my sibling.
yeah, yeah. It's I think horror is a bit like comedy, right? Because it's so broad. There's so many different types, but essentially you just have that one word to encompass all of it. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Which is like you see horror on a film,
Yeah.
but then you go to watch it and you're like, oh, that was scarier than I thought, or oh, that was the kind of thing I actually more enjoy, because I'm not so much a fan of like torture porn
Right.
as you would say, right? I
Mm-hmm.
prefer like I saw Good Boy the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was so good. I really enjoyed the heck out of that, right? And it's things like Good Boy, Donnie Darko, um, yeah, like Bitch Ass, Brad Guts the Axe, right? There's those kind of things that's the kind of stuff that I kind of enjoy the most.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you don't know just from the word horror what it's going to be, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is
The genre has changed and will continue to change over time. When I was a kid, I mentioned Scream. Those movies aren't gory enough nowadays for audiences,
no,
and especially slasher fans. So I think that I think Tarantino said it at some point. There's like a pendulum; it swings in this business, and like, if you look at just sort of like the way that Hollywood follows trends, that's kind of the way that it works. And you know, last year we had an unrated horror movie that made massive, ground in the box office world, Terrifier 3, and it was the third movie. And it really just kind of redefined what you know, we thought movies could do at the box office. Like an unrated movie at the box office used to mean like no one's going to see it because,
Mm.
you know, and it just goes to show that there's an old school system still in place. And, you know, I would say that old school system still redefines the genres of films. And
Yeah.
like, you know, it's like, is silent, you know, Ed Gein, you know, that monster Ryan Murphy homoerotic Netflix thing that just came out. Like Ed Gein is like not the serial killer like Ted Bundy is. Ed
Mm.
Gein's like seriously mentally disturbed and
Yeah.
not a you know blood and guts scary person, but yet two of the movies that we, you know, actually not meaning not blood and guts scary person, like he's not Art the Clown, you know,
Yeah.
he's a scared little old man. And so I think that us villainizing, you know, these stories have created the genre. Like that's what
Mm.
Psycho's based off of. That's what Silence of the Lambs is based off of. And if you watch Psycho nowadays, that's not scary. It wouldn't be considered a horror movie nowadays. You watch Silence of the Lambs nowadays, is that a horror movie still? Is it more of a cop thriller now, more like Law and Order nowadays? So like the genre evolves and we have
Mm.
to
Mm.
evolve with the genre. And it's like when people that watch my movies don't call them horror movies, it's kind of, um, or like if somebody compares Initiation to a totally different type of horror movie,
Yeah.
like you can't compare apples and oranges, you know, nowadays like you used to with genres and how we talk about movies, because you're right, there's so many different elements that can be brought to a horror film that change what we define horror as. Look at The Substance. That's a cartoon. The Substance is not a scary movie. I mean, there's scary elements in it, but the movie is a legit cartoon. What's
Mm.
scary is the social commentary. And
Yeah.
so, you know, the end of it with the blood and that's funny. That's a cartoon.
Yeah.
That's like Looney Tunes. And so, how am I going to compete in a like? You can't compare a movie like The Mannequin with The Substance, right? They're two totally different tonally films, but yet they're both horror movies, and elements of body horror and misogyny are in both of them. And so
Mm.
that's what's so cool about the genre, is that you can get really anything from it.
That is true. That is true. I do think at times there should be a kind of comparability chart.
Mm.
So people kind of go, oh, it's similar to these. Right, I like those, so I'll probably go check that out. Or, oh, it's more akin to this kind of thing. Be like, I didn't. That's kind of thing doesn't really work for me. So maybe I will. But it kind of to give you a tonal idea of what something is, maybe. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, absolutely. I'm sure
there's
that that will be in place soon enough. I mean, even nowadays, when you go on Amazon or IMDb, it'll say other customers bought this, or other customers, like that data, that, you know, that ad data is, you know, steering in that direction.
true. Though sometimes I think IMBD gets that bit right. Sometimes there'll be like, you'll look at that section and be like Home Alone. You're like, wait, how would I
Yeah.
want to watch it from this film? Like, what's going on here? Right?
Yeah,
They throw out some
yeah,
really
that's where the
obvious
data is.
choices.
Yeah, it's not perfect, right? Because
No.
who knows? Somebody may be obsessed with Home Alone, also loves horror movies. But also, again, like Home Alone, it's about a little kid that's at home and somebody's trying to break in during, like, there are horror elements to Home Alone.
Yeah, it's kind of like entry level horror for a
Hmm.
child, because
Hmm.
that is what is scary to a child, right? Possibly being left, being abandoned, right? Being at home and then being kind of, attacked by strangers, right? So that is horror for a child, right? But
Hmm.
it's not horror for an adult.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, which is interesting. I think when you break it down into those kind of factors. right? But like for you, what was the thing that kind of drew you to horror?
I would say definitely the movie Scream. Um, I saw that as a kid, like every other kid that loves horror movies. Um, I had not watched R-rated movies before I saw Scream. I didn't really care to watch horror movies.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, I remember we were supposed to rent the movie Anaconda because it
Oh,
came
okay.
around the same time on VHS, and that was all out. But Scream was not. And so we rented Scream. I was 10, 11 years old. And I had never seen something that really shocked me.
Yeah.
It was shocking. It was violently shocking in a way that I'd never seen before. And it was disturbing to me. But at the same time, I enjoyed it. I had a fun time. It was like a roller coaster. You're scared, but it's fun,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
safe. You're in the safety of your own home. And I would say it was one of those movies that afterwards it just stuck with me. And it was the early days of the internet. And so I just became obsessed with Google imaging Nev Campbell and Scream. And then the second one came out, and then I Know What You Did Last Summer. And then it just, the 90s slasher craze and the way that the 90s slasher craze kind of put a pedestal or it created this celebrityism
Mm.
that uh, I would say we still see to this day, because you ask an actor in the 80s to do a horror movie, it was like a career death wish to a degree, whereas now it's like expected. And
Yeah.
so I feel that the Scream era and the time I was at in my impressionable mind really kind of pushed me into the love of the genre. And I will say too, the older I get, like when I was 12, 13, the more blood the better. Like Terrifier, I would have like I would have been shocked, but like I remember seeing I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and like they advertised it saying this many gallons of blood were used to make I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and this many gallons of blood were used to make I Know What You Did Last Summer. And you saw this crave for more violence and
Mm.
film and TV, and all of that kind of got put to a stop with the Japanese horror remakes like The Ring. And studios were like, wait a second, we can make PG-13 horror movies and still make a lot more money. And so that was my introduction to it. And of course I read books like R.L. Stine, Christopher Pike. The Christopher Pike novels especially were very they had this like adult childlike element of camp to them.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a different time for the genre, but I feel those are the moments that defined what the genre is to this day.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like Scream. I mean, there's so many movies that wouldn't exist today without Scream.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the interesting thing, right? Because you have that first film, it's kind of like when you look at things like Gladiator and The Matrix. Now, obviously, there'd been a ton of sword and sandal films, but those were like 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and then we kind of stopped. And so then Gladiator reopened that door, and then suddenly we see a lot more come out. And with Scream, it was I Know What You Did Last Summer. It was
Urban Legend. Yeah.
yes, Final Destination. Like we had all of those films suddenly coming, and then it was all about creating franchises of these things and what
And
else we do.
franchises on like non-exist. I mean, I Know You Did Last Summer as a book. Yes. We get that. But like nowadays, it's very difficult to do this. Smile is a great example of like, you know, an OG franchise, and it's a smart idea, and it's simple enough for the audience to latch onto and be scared. And so I think that you know, yes, you're absolutely right. It was like about, but also what created these franchises were the stars and the
Yeah.
celebrity of it all. And the 90s, hands down, like bolstered that. I mean, every decade did that, but that was, I remember just like, you know, the Courtney Cox of it all, watching Friends and then seeing her in Scream, and then you make these, you know, the connections and the dots of like, oh, this person's in that. And I think the internet coming out at the time that it did also helped all that, because, you know, we had IMDb to go look at stuff. And, you know, IMDb's been around way longer than most people think.
Oh, for sure.
And so it's, yeah. And nowadays, I'd say that like you see the studios trying to recapitalize on all that.
Yes. Like, I think one of the interesting things, because you're right? Like, back in the day, to get a star to do a horror film, it was kind of like getting a star to do a TV project. It was just like, are you silly? I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
No, that's gonna kill my career, you
Right.
know. But now, like, everyone's clamoring to do a TV project, right? You say everyone's clamoring to do a horror project, and I think what they did, when you think about things like Scream, like Nev Campbell, right? She came from Party of Five, right? So, you know, Courtney Cox came from Friend. Like, that's, I mean, they done smaller films and things like that, but those were the TV things, were the things that blew them up. And so they took people from big TV shows and were like, hey, let's put you in this film, you know, you can star in a film, which was just like, oh my God, I get to star in something rather than be neighbor number 2, you know, friend number 5, right? Which was the big thing. You know, you take someone who had a fan base from a big TV show, then you put them in a film, right? And then have them blow up even more in that way.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like also that, you know, back in the 90s, the contracts that celebrities got to make those types of movies were far different than they are now.
Yeah.
And TV, I feel like, is a little bit more lucrative nowadays for actors than movies are.
Oh,
More
yeah.
people watch TV than they do movies.
Oh, I'm sure Nev Campbell made so much more money doing Scream than Party of Five.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I would say too, like that it's I feel like they didn't need a huge star in Scream. You know what I'm saying? Like, they got Drew Barrymore. They wanted her to play the Nev Campbell role. You know, if anything, they wanted somebody who wasn't a huge star yet, and they were like, this is going to make you a huge star now, you know? And it's like, that doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen. You know, like, unless it's an AI actor or some shit like that. You know, it's like it's like, okay, you're gonna make this robot person a star now? Like, what's going on? Like, it's just such a different world.
Yeah, well, I kind of feel it's the art of storytelling has gone away when it comes to promotion. You know what I mean? Like, now it's just like, if we have a big star, that will bring people to the film, rather than thinking of, you know, how can we sell this thing, right? What interesting things can we do? Because when you think about Smile, they went and had some creepy ass people, you know, in at sports games and everything like that, just paying them to smile for 2 hours. You know,
and the creepy ass dude in Smiles in The Mannequin. He plays the creepy guy in Smile, the first one. He's Jack, the serial killer in The Mannequin. And I went to college with him at UCLA. And he I mean, like, Smile, hearing how that movie, that that movie was supposed to just be a Paramount Plus release,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it, you know, it ended up doing so well in test screenings that it blew up. And I think that's a testament to that, to the director, and how good he is,
Mm.
and how good his idea was.
Yeah. And it's just like, if you let, you know, creativity shine, you can get interesting things, right? It doesn't have to be a, you know, based on an existing IP, right? It can be something completely new, right? You don't necessarily need big stars to draw people to films. I think if the story is compelling, people will come, but you have to let them know what's different about this story, you know, and that's something that we don't always get,
Yeah,
which is a
it's
shame.
you're absolutely right. It's a lot harder nowadays for studios to get that message out about a movie.
Yeah, which is kind of baffling,
Yeah.
because it shouldn't be,
Well,
you
you
know.
know, it's when I teach at a college, and we talk about like contemporary media a lot, and I'd say a huge part of it is just like it's so oversaturated with like avenues to advertise. You know, where are the eyes that would pay for
Mm,
these things? And they're not like all in one location like they used to be. You know, it's like print press, papers, magazines, like, you know, that was like your bread and butter of how to advertise, TV commercials, jazz like that. But like nowadays, it's no one's even using magazines anymore. Like they're all out of print. You
yeah.
know, newspapers. Young people aren't reading newspapers. So it's like all these different avenues, like Twitter, you know, social media, blogs, all of that, and that's all going to change too in the next 10, 15 years. You know, like everything's going to consistently evolve. And you see Hollywood trying to play catch up with it, and trying to play catch up with how to establish some sort of like, you know, top dog position that they did in terms of media content years ago they had. But they, you know, there's these old school rules in place, and you know, ways to make money that it's just a different world. People don't, like, you know, people don't go to the theaters anymore. Kids don't do that. I used to go to a movie every weekend. Kids don't do that
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, I think part of the reason, though, is you've outpriced them, right? The cinema used to be the cheap date, right?
Yeah.
But now you need to
Yeah.
take a mortgage out to go.
And it's like, why would you spend $100 on an evening to just go see a movie when you can watch it for free if you subscribe to Netflix for $14.99 a month?
There is that, right? Now, I think a big part of the cinema is like going to live music, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the experience, it's sharing that experience with a group of like minded people. You know, I just remember seeing Black Panther, and like coming out of the screen, you had kids, you know, boys, girls, black, white, Chinese, Indian, it didn't matter, but everyone was throwing up the arms like Wakanda forever. You know what I mean? It was like that bit in Avengers Endgame when just everyone turned up to beat on Thanos, and everyone's like, oh my god. You know what I mean? It was just those moments that ignite people, right? And that there's something to that. But if you're paying a load of money to go to the cinema, and you have people talking behind you, right? It's dirty. Why am I paying all that money?
Yeah.
Right? It's like the cinemas need to do more to cultivate the experience and ensure it's a good one. Because I worked at a cinema, right? While I was at university. And when I started, they were giving out like hundreds of comp tickets a week, because people would talk and misbehave, right? They used to be this stupid free rule, you know, thing in place, right? You had to say, excuse me, sir, can you stop talking? And then go, sir, I said before, can you stop? And then on the third, you could kick them out, right?
Really?
So I got promoted and I just changed I was just like, you know what? Yeah, there's no more of that nonsense, right? If you misbehave, you're out straight away. No more comp tickets had to go out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, if everyone can enjoy the experience, they will come, right? But if, you know what I mean, it's like, if I'm paying that money and it could be just a terrible night, then I don't want to pay that money. I'll
Yeah.
stay at home, right? So I think cinemas need to do more. If you lower the price, more people will come. You know, it's just thinking of ways to show them that this is a great venue to watch a movie.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I could see that as a potential way to get people back in the theaters. And, there's just so many factors and so many, you're talking about Wakanda and Thanos, like those are Disney characters. Like Disney ruined Hollywood. Like when they bought up Marvel and Star Wars, it was over. And like this was the first year in a decade that Disney wasn't in like the top spot. And so what does that tell you? Like, look back at the decades. You've got one conglomerate eating everything up. And when that happens and the pandemic screwed them over because that model of how they were gobbling up everything was non-existent anymore. And so it's just a really interesting study to watch how Disney evolved the last 10 years, because that they were the only reason people would go to theaters. They capitalized on that. I mean, if I'm being brutally honest about myself, like in the last 10 years, most of the movies that I would go to a big theater venue to see or something like that with like family or friends, it's probably a Disney movie or a Star Wars movie or something like that. Like those movies come out in the holidays and they capitalize on the family time. And so ultimately, like, I think that the people that go to the theaters for those Disney films like Thanos, Wakanda, they knew about those movies before that movie came out. They knew about those characters in that story well before Disney turned them into something. And so some of them, but Marvel's a huge like that's all IP. Star Wars is all IP.
But I would say like characters like Captain America, Spider-Man, you know what I mean? They're the big ones. People like Black Panther, because there was a point where you couldn't have a black character lead.
Oh gosh, yes. Black Panther is one of, probably not the best example to mention, but that being like Black Panther's, I would say very different from what I'm talking about, because Black Panther did completely change, boundaries, not just for Disney, but for the superhero fan base. And, culturally was something that was very much needed. But that being said, like, it's still a Disney movie. It's still Disney. It's still Disney press and advertising. It's still a Disney budget. You know what I'm saying? And so
yeah,
Disney's utilizing that to make money. You see what I'm saying? It's like still Disney. And so what I'm getting at is that the theaters are. You're right. We need to change something. But even like yesterday, I went to a Scream Fest, and horror movies are one of those unique genres that you can have a collective experience at a movie theater that you get with those Marvel fan base movies. You get people that are like, turn off the lights, turn on the lights, screaming at the characters because they're invested in that. And horror is that it gives that same communal experience.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Because, you know what I mean? It's when you have that moment that makes everyone jump, right? Like, and everyone's jumping, and you're like, yo, yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't
Or
do
that
that.
moment that the dumb character didn't turn the light on, and you've got
Mm,
everybody screaming at them to turn on the light. Like that puts us in that psychological position of like, what would we do?
yeah, not run up the stairs,
Right.
right?
What's
Not
wrong
go
with
somewhere where there's only one exit, dummy. Like, I'm
that?
not doing that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's those things that kind of bring people together, right? I think that's the thing that can kind of, light that fire under people and get people, jazzed about seeing things and that experience,
Hmm.
which is, yeah, there's definitely something about that, right?
Absolutely.
Mm, mm. So, was it always horror for you?
No, no. In terms of like what I wanted to make as an artist, and yeah, I started with horror. The first movie I made as a kid was a horror movie, but I grew up in the era too when I went to film school in the early 2010s and I said I wanted to make horror movies. I was asked why. Why do you want to make horror movies? And um, with that mentality, I felt as an artist, I wanted, I explored all genres. I
Mm,
went there in college. I went to UCLA for theater directing and playwriting. And I went through this crazy like post-war melodrama phase where like, I mean, you can kind of see behind me, I've got Marlon Brando and Vivian Leigh. Like I loved and very much resonated with a lot of post-war melodrama, being a closeted queer kid. And a lot of those stories really spoke to me. Those dramas. I loved epic World War II dramas. When I was in college, I was trying to make, these crazy, and they all had like noir murder mystery elements to them.
yeah.
But I would make like I remember I tried to make period movies, and I had this teacher at USC because when I went from UCLA, I went to USC for grad school, and she was like, who are you, Martin Scorsese? No one's going to pay you to make these. Like, and it was just like oh, okay. Like, so what the fuck am I doing? Like, and I remember I made a student that I went to USC with, she wrote this really creepy script called Ouija. And I'm sure that the movie's somewhere on the internet, but it's basically just about three girls that use a Ouija board and you think something supernatural is happening, but you're not sure. And
Yeah.
then you just realize at the end that one of the girls is just a really evil, mean girl, and she's fucking with the other girl because she had an affair with the other girl's boyfriend that she doesn't know about. And it's like, it was just such a great twist. And I made that movie and I realized, and this is like 15 years ago, I realized it was like the first like contemporary film that I had made in film school. And everyone was like, oh, wow, you can make like modern movies. And I was like, yeah. And then it just kind of hit me. I took a making media for social change class at USC. And it's like you had kids making movies about like, poverty, really like real world issues, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to make a movie about a guy who's murdered because he puts too much information about himself on Facebook. And so I ended up making a Scream with Facebook. And that was the short film for Initiation that inspired Initiation. And that kind of launched my trajectory into the genre. I would say I always watched horror movies, even when I wasn't making them. I would always
Yeah.
watch them. But I think that it was when I graduated USC, I just knew that horror was the one genre as an artist where you could think outside of the box. You could speak your voice. I had film teachers tell me like, good luck trying to make like, a World War II drama,
Mm,
which, what does that tell you? And so I realized that if I wanted to have any sort of career as a director, I needed to really get smart about not just like finding my voice as an artist and making movies and hope somebody's interested in them, but like what's selling, where are new, what genre are new directors being given chances, right? And like, you know, nowadays you've got every director and there's mom's director's director trying to make a horror movie because it's the only genre that you can think, or one of the few that we still make movies and content that's not like something that we've already seen before. It allows you to think outside of the box, and it allows you to, you know, take something that we do find familiar and do it differently, and people understand where you're going with it, rather than, you know, that's not like, you know, that comedy or that drama that I loved. Like horror just allows people to think a little bit more intellectually.
Yes, that is true. But I do wonder, right? Is it because with some of those other genres, people get trapped within the confines of what has been? You know what I mean? Because it's just kind of like your experience in a relationship isn't going to be the same as my experience in a relationship. So if you made a rom-com, it's not going to be the same as my rom-com. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But people get told, oh, a rom-com should have this, 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 and this. And so I think sometimes that's why we just end up seeing the same thing over and over again. But then we get those really interesting things like Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not like anything else, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Or you have things like About Time, or oh God, what was that Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh one from last year?
I know she has. I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name of it, but
Yeah, It Ends in Time, or We Live in Time, something like that. But
Mhm.
I thought they were very different. And I think when people don't let themselves get trapped and go, you know, I'm just going to tell my story. I don't care. Like, you can tell me this is how I should do it, but I'm going to try something different. Then we get the interesting things, you know, that
Yeah,
are out in the other genres, as it were.
yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You know that everybody's experience in making something is going to be different. And I will also say though that like being a director that doesn't like to make horror movies that I would say specifically follow the trends, if you would.
Yeah.
It is always very fascinating to me when I read a review, and a review is like, oh, the movie should have been this way, or like, you know, it should have been scary earlier, or it should have been this earlier. And it's just very fascinating because it's like, should it? Does that? Why? Why does the movie have to be scary earlier? It's like everyone's like, oh my God, Sinners is the greatest movie ever, the greatest horror movie ever. Okay, yeah, that's awesome. But like, then you watch a movie, you know, like Initiation, or, you know, some other like drama toned horror film, and it's boring. So it's what expectations are being put upon the audience that these movies are going to.
Yeah.
Sinners knew which audience to go to, and it went to the right audience, you know. And so horror fans, it's not like somebody loves horror movies, they're going to love all horror movies, right? You've got your elevated horror movies, you've got your torture porn, you've got your Blumhouse horror movie, you know, it's all over. There's different types. And I'd say that, like, you know, no matter what, horror has to speak upon the fears of humanity. And if there's a good jump scare too, or some really great tonally scary things, like, then people will enjoy it, you know, like you're going to find somebody who's going to like it. But as long as that it has some sort of point of view about what it means to be human and what's scary, then, you know, it's got a place in this genre.
Yeah, for sure, right? I think one interest, like Sinners, was not necessarily expected to be big, which was interesting, right? Like it just kind of blew up. But
Hmm.
then I think you have things like the Cube. Is it the Cube or Cube?
Cube,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Which, oh man, I love that film. I thought that the first one. The
Mm.
other ones are just like Highlander 2 and 3. You know what I mean? It's just like you're trying to do the first film again, but
Yeah.
it doesn't, you know, you don't understand what made the first film great, right? So you're trying to copy something, but with bad DNA, it's never gonna work. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think you can do things interestingly, and especially when, as you said, it's dealing kind of with the human condition, because it's those, what are the things that scare you, what are the things that give you anxiety, right? And you can really channel those things, right? And then you've got a film that kind of really speaks to people, which is just interesting, man. Like having, the sisters, right, their relationship, and right, the friends, what I mean? I just thought that was really interesting with the Mannequin, right? But you have those two different, and especially in a hmm, what can we say? Yeah, I guess we can say when Leanna comes back, right?
Hmm.
You have Hazel
Yeah.
trying to be like, hey, like nothing is, you know, a problem, and Nadine is more like,
Hmm.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
thought that's interesting and realistic,
Well, and
you
that's
know.
that's yeah, that's a commentary really on the pandemic earlier,
Mm,
because I think that the way that I wanted, the reason I wrote that scene the way that I did and directed it the way that I did is because I felt that after the pandemic, I had a reckoning with a lot of friends.
yeah.
I had a lot of friends that I just stopped talking to. And 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 we all had that experience. And so
Mm,
and there was a lot of figuring things out between friendships, relationships, and it's almost like a year had gone by, but it felt like it was just so, there's such a time warp, because how could a year go by that you don't really see or speak to this person who you were so close with, but yet, like, it feels like it was just a week, and it was just such a hard thing to go through, I think, for all of us, that how can I portray that realistically, and that feeling of what it's like to, uh, come back after a year and not really know how to talk or communicate with somebody that you were so close with.
yeah, yeah. I think it showed you what the connective tissue was with your friend groups, right? Like where it was strong is the people that you talk to still regularly. And then there was people that, yeah, you thought you were tight with, but disappeared,
Mm-hmm.
right? They just disappeared. But then you found out that they were still talking a lot with other people, but it's just like, oh, but I don't fit into, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
huh, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so you saw all of these different things, which I think, yeah, was very informative. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I would say
that,
a huge part of that's too the girls that played the roles. They are friends, and I think that true friendship between who these women are really comes through in their performances. The
mm,
chemistry.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I just thought like there were those things that were really strong and really sang through in this film. And I think I don't think you need to come out of the gate scary necessarily. Though I will say, right, like just the beginning part of the film is very unsettling.
Yes.
You
Creepy.
know? Yeah. Right. And it's also that kind of, you know what I mean? It because you have that photographer abusing his position as a photographer, be like, oh, do you really need the pants, right? And it's those kind, you're just like, oh man, dude, like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? And so it's just like those kind of things that are kind of unsettling and just make you feel a bit like, oh, what's going? And then like we get the neck, and you're just like, oh, right. And so it's a different form of like scary, as it were.
Yeah, I think it's all dependent on what you find scary, right?
Mm,
And I think that you talk about the connection between these girls, well, and that genuine feeling of them being friends that you felt is what makes it scarier later when their characters are up against supernatural forces, or the horror elements of it, because you saw them what they went through. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like I was saying with Scream, like that ending scene or that opening scene's so fucked up because not just because like we watched this American princess essentially get brutally eviscerated in front of us, but we had to hear her mother talk to her during it. We had to watch her
Mm,
mother listen to it. That is fucked up. That is beyond, like, ask an actor to do that. Go ahead, ask them to do that and give you a real performance, because that's what makes it horrifying for me. That's what I find scary, and um, I think that that's what makes the jump scares jumpier, and that's what makes the push and reveals of the violence more shocking. And yeah, with the Mannequin, I like to say, Initiation, when I watch Initiation, even to this day, it's not a fun movie. Like, it's not a movie that you watch and you're like, oh my God, that was so fun. No,
yeah,
it's not. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
It's a movie that you watch and you're like, ugh, fuck, that's like, ew, like you feel gross
Yeah,
knowing the system of it all. The Mannequin, I didn't want that feeling.
yeah,
I wanted a movie that like was able to convey those icky, creepy, misogyny layered sort of like elements that we discussed, but I wanted people to have a good time with it. And I wanted people to be able to laugh and feel the absurdity of it all. And that's really, I would say a huge difference that I explored was like, how can I make this friend group fun? Like we know these girls, we're part of their, it's like, and I would always say it's like Sex in the City meets The Exorcist, right? Because it's like you've got your fun girlfriend group, and then fashion and mannequins and murder, possession, and dismemberment. So it really has that fun, playful element, that gal pal, final girl energy that every great horror movie needs. And I will say, I think that's missing from modern day horror movies a lot of the times. Like that best girl, final girl energy. I just think it's one of the best parts of the genre. That's what why I was obsessed with Neve Campbell. She was my Superman. I didn't care about Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne. I cared about Neve Campbell and Sidney Prescott. And because that's the human character that I connected with.
well, I think one big thing is, right, you have to build a character for people to care about a character. Like when you can watch when you watch something and someone is one-dimensional, paper thin, they're disposable.
Right.
You don't care. right? I know that was a big thing about Game of Thrones, that the fact they built some characters up and you're like, yeah, there's a great character. Like, wait, you just killed him?
Yep.
You killed her? What the hell? I did not see. And that's the big thing, right? You create that thing where people are like, man, I love that person. They're so and I think when you like, especially with the Mannequin, man, like as I said, we start off creepy, and there's other things that are unsettling and kind of just like, oh, what's going on there? Like, at the start where everyone's celebrating, but you can see there's something up with Liana,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like, yo, what's going on here? Like, and so you're creating those kind of threads for people.
Right.
And then we have that scene where the girls are in the factory and they're standing by the thing, right? And then the thing falls.
Mm.
Yeah, son of a bitch, I jumped so high. I
Yeah.
was not expecting that. It was just like, yo, what the? I was like, okay.
Yeah. And I had to do that because I made you sit and listen to these girls bitch for the last 10 minutes. So it would be, and they needed, the characters had to do that. The
Yeah.
characters had to express their feelings that way. And I needed to get you off guard, like put you in a place of complacency, and then wham, the head fell off.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. Well, that's the other big thing, right? They had the conversation they needed to have. And sometimes you'll have like, these situations, but it's not addressed. And you're like, how would they not address that thing? Right? If this is a friend group, if these
right.
are a couple, if this is this, how do they not talk about that?
The reality of what it means to be a human. Yeah.
Because everyone would. There's no way you don't have that conversation, or at least start it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's frustrating when it doesn't happen. So when you have it, you're like, yes, finally we have the thing. They're doing the thing, and so it just makes it feel more three-dimensional.
Thank you. I love hearing that. I love hearing that.
Well,
horror movies need more 3-dimension.
Yes,
The
because
best
they
ones have that.
care about the thing.
Right.
If you don't have 3 dimensions, you don't care. So it doesn't matter, right? People die. And I think sometimes you have, like, as I say, I really enjoyed Cube. And I think they really built some of these characters, even when you didn't really know a lot about some of the characters, right? You were still intrigued by them. So then when someone, got caught in a trap, or like, you're like, oh, fuck, no. And it also kind of emphasized the perilous situation they were in.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get this glut of escape room type of films. And there's a lot of them where they don't build anything, so you don't care.
Right.
And that's the thing. You have to care, right? And it's not even a horror thing. It's in everything. If you do not build your characters, if you do not add dimensions to your characters, why am I going to care about this story?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
But yeah, no, you did. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that you built things up, and
Thank you.
just in say some of the possessions, maybe, right? Like, they're very unnerving.
Yes. Well, and you know how their eyes do, the googly eye thing. So our investors are doctors, the EPs of this movie. Believe it or not, all of them are in the medical field.
Okay.
And that's what was so fun to work with them on this, because one of them, his name's Sanjay Balani. He's a anesthesiologist. And he basically told me, it's called like the discognitive or I don't, he probably won't see this and scold me, but basically there's some sort of thing that happens to your eyes when you're given anesthesia. And if you open people's eyes when they're put under, they do that. They move, they'll roll and then kind of like wobble back and forth like that. And that was so important to me about when it came to the possessions. Like I needed the possessions to give the same feeling of unnerving creepiness that you feel when you're with a mannequin in a room and you feel like those eyes are moving, but are they really? Like then that uncanny valley effect that we all kind of experience when you go to like the House of Wax Museum or something like that. That is the feeling I wanted the possession to feel like. How many possession movies do you see where people, their eyes turn white or they turn black or something?
Yeah.
Because in the original script, if you've seen Talk to Me, the way that the pupils grow almost cartoon-like was originally the direction of it. But after I saw Talk to Me and they did that, I was like, we got to think of something different. There's got to be a new, undone way of showing possession, and I feel really good about how we did it.
Yes. And, bringing people back from it and just all of those kind of things, which was, whew.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I creepy is a good adjective.
Yeah. It's like when you're kind of writing it and shooting it and, do you know it's worked, or it's just like, are you waiting for that first screening to fully be like, okay, yeah, we did it, when you get that reaction?
Oh, I would say I get the reaction on set for sure. When you're on set, and I'm an avid storyboarder, like I love to draw and do art. And I think that, it's like no directors don't storyboard really anymore nowadays, unless it's like an action sequence or heavy visual effects. And so, I just love it though. I love being able to show up to set and being, okay, we're going to get this shot of you and this shot of you, and then we're going to do this, because it allows me to feel that confidence of like, okay, we did it. We're good. And then when you see it come to life in the monitor, that feeling that you just mentioned, that's the first time I'd say you feel it for me.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Because it's interesting, I feel, right? Because I think you have, like, when you make something, there's, a feeling that you've done something good, but then you have to drop it into the world. And sometimes it doesn't, it doesn't manifest how you think it might, because, there was a lot of talk about the Smashing Machine. You know what I mean? And I think it got the biggest standing ovation in Venice, though I think this whole standing ovation thing, ain't all of that can be manipulated.
Old school. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't, that doesn't mean anything to me. Really, like, oh, that one didn't get a standing ovation. It's just like, whatever.
Right.
But I think the feeling was that the Smashing Machine was going to be, it was going to do well. But at the moment, it's not. Now, I don't think that means it's gonna, because when you had like, I think it was Disney's Elemental, everyone was like, it's bombing. And then it suddenly went and blew up. And I think with word of mouth, maybe people go and see the Smack, because I thought it was really good, but for whatever reason, it's not catching fire. So there's that kind of thing which you know what I mean? You don't know sometimes how it's gonna connect with your audiences, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Like what is that feeling like for you? You know what I mean? Like you've shot something, you think you've done a good job, but you still haven't put it out into the world. So it's just like, how are they gonna gravitate to it? How are they gonna find this?
If I had that answer, I would be very rich. I'd be the richest man in the world. Let's be real. No, that's a question that's like asking me the fountain of youth. Like it's a question that I feel so much of this business is asking, like, how do you know or get it to the right audience, right? And
But it's not so much how do you get it to the right audience, but that feeling of, oh, how will this go over?
yeah,
Right? You
yeah,
just
yeah.
don't know.
I would say it was harsh slap of reality when the Initiation came out, because one difference with my career and my first film was that the independent movie business is very reliant on, or it used to be, on the film festival world to get
Yeah.
the movie and everybody to know about it. So having South by Southwest canceled right before the movie was supposed to launch, it really sort of rewired my brain in a way, because I don't know what it's like to have a standing ovation at a film
Mm.
festival. I don't know what it's like. I don't even know what it's like to do a Q&A at a film festival. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because my first movie, we didn't have that. And unfortunately, the Mannequin, it didn't get into any of the larger festivals.
Mhm.
And I think what I learned was that it didn't really need to get to its audience.
Yeah.
So far it hasn't needed that. And it's kind of made me realize, like, you put so much pressure on yourself as a filmmaker to do it the right way and to do it in a way that you hope people like. But I don't. I learned with Initiation, people are gonna like you when you make what is authentically you. When you do something that is what you're not trying to appease people. You're
Yeah.
not trying to, and I think that feeling of knowing, like, are they gonna like it? Are they not gonna like it? You have to, or I had to put that in a place of, like, not letting it affect how I feel about the movie and how I feel about the process of the movie. It's very easy to you champion a project for so many years, and then the movie doesn't, like, get into the biggest festival in the world, or it doesn't win this award and all that. It's very difficult to maintain that championed energy for a movie. But I would say, if you feel good about what you made and the purpose for you making it, then none of that stuff affects how you feel about yourself in the film when it comes out. And do I want people to like it? Of course I do. But do I care what they have to say about me and about my direction of the movie itself? I have had to, like, not let that affect how I view myself in the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, because
Yeah.
you do care, but over time you just have to be confident with the decisions that you made and move on.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Right. Because everyone's gonna have a different opinion,
Everyone.
right?
And it's
Everyone's gonna have
nerve-wracking.
a different view of it, and they don't know, right? Unless they've spoken to you about it, they don't know what the intent was, right? What certain things were trying to say, right? They can be like, oh, well, obviously, when this happens, he's trying to say this, and you're just like, no, I wasn't. What are you talking
Right.
about?
Or like, that's great that you saw that, like yeah, yeah. You're
Mm,
absolutely right. Yes.
yeah, but you know what? I think having like conversations like this and you going out there talking about the film, I think that's a huge thing of bringing people to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's not so much making something for people, but when you're telling people, yo, this is what I'm doing, right? You then get, you pique the interest, so then it is for them, right?
Yeah.
You might think, oh, it's probably not for me, and then you hear someone talking, you go, oh, I want to see that now.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, people will, because yeah, you did a great job of building these people, building the story to get, people to care about where it's going and this resolution. So, man,
Well, thank you.
congratulations with this, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad that that the movie, it sounds like it resonated with you, and you liked it. And thank you for having me on to chat about it and help get the word out there.
Ah, no worries, man. Susan hit me up and it was just like, yeah, let's do this, man.
Awesome.
Right? So, how can people keep track of you and see the film? Let them know.
Well, The Mannequin comes out on digital and DVD October 14th. You can get it anywhere that you can buy or rent movies, Apple, Amazon. And I'm not a TikTok guy, but I do have an Instagram. You can find me at my name, John Berardo.
Awesome. Awesome. And do you have the next project? Are you thinking about that?
I do, but I can't say anything about it right now because I am still working out contractual things. But I'm very excited about my next project, and hopefully I'll have more to announce. And of course, it's still gonna be horror, still gonna be thriller. I would say that, like, I want to go and explore more in the suspense, murder mystery, thriller route for the next one.
Mm, mm. Okay, well, that's good. Now, I only said because, hey, once people see this, they want to see even more from you. So
Oh
now
yeah,
they've got something to
I got
look forward to.
I'm working. I will say one thing that I want to explore adaptations, and I want to explore. There's so much great content out there. I want to explore that, but of course, I've got a monster movie that I'm writing, and I've got a really messed up serial killer script about the meth epidemic in Middle America. So I've got a lot of, like, real world scary movies, but I also want to see what other content out there that could be adapted.
Awesome. Well, John, once you have that next thing, please stop by and we can, what I mean, have another conversation about it.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely, Kevin.
Outstanding. Well, people, the 14th, right? Mark it down in the calendar. Go check out The Mannequin because John and crew do a great job with this film. So, yeah, if you want good storytelling, you'll get it with that, right? The Mannequin. John, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It was great talking with you. And hey, good luck with the launch, though I don't
Thank you.
think you need it because people will definitely be looking to watch your film.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries, man. But yeah, all the success and looking forward to what comes next.
Absolutely. The next chat.
Yes, man. Awesome. All right, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, okay?
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.